President Biden is in Israel this morning after the deadly blast in Gaza hit a hospital, killing hundreds. This is according to Palestinian officials. We do know a lot of people are dead, hundreds of people, no yet firm number, but it is heartbreaking and horrible. And there was horrible injury and death after that blast. And so many of those people who had sought refuge. That is the reality of the situation. And that blast is also sparking mass anti-Israel protests across the Middle East. Today, starting last night in Jordan and continuing through the day today. In Jordan, local security forces were seen using tear gas to try to disperse huge crowds near the Israeli embassy in Amman. And I want to go to our own Neda Bashir, who is in Amman, Jordan, with more. And Neda, I want to just, the context here, of course, is that the president of the United States was going to be going there, right? And it gives people the context of what happened when this hospital strike occurred, that immediate outpouring in the street in a city where the president was going to go. The anger has boiled over.
Absolutely. We have seen that translated to not only the popular front, but also the diplomatic front. As you mentioned, that summit between the leaders of Egypt, the Palestinian Authority, Jordan, and of course, US President Joe Biden has been called off. We heard from the foreign minister of Jordan yesterday saying that their singular focus in holding this summit was to bring an end to the war, to bring some respite and relief to the Palestinian people inside the besieged Gaza Strip. And he doesn't feel, the Jordanian authorities do not feel that their international partners are on the same page when it comes to that focus at this current point in time. And of course, we cannot ignore the fact that this has come in response to that horrifying attack on the Al-Ahli hospital inside the Gaza Strip. We know that 3 days of mourning have been declared. This is being observed across the Middle East. The flag behind me is at half-mast in response to that attack. And of course, as you mentioned, we have seen huge protests taking place across the region. In fact, these protests have been going on from the outset of the war, particularly here in Amman, where almost half of the population are either Palestinian or of Palestinian descent across Jordan, rather. So this is a central cause for many people in this country. We saw huge crowds gathering yesterday towards the Israeli embassy, some protesters attempting to storm the Israeli embassy. And we are expecting to see even further protests today, including one protest which is said to be scheduled outside the US embassy. Of course, the US being seen as a key ally here to Israel and in some sense complicit in what many feel are these horrific airstrikes happening inside the Gaza Strip. But I think it is really important to underscore here the outrage that we have seen amongst people across the Middle East. I think your military analyst just before described this as a bias that is felt in the Middle East. But I have to say, what we've seen from people that we've been speaking to is a sense of horror and outrage at the civilian toll that we've seen inside the Gaza Strip, an area of land that is under blockade, is facing a complete siege at this current point in time. And I think it is also important to underscore that while Hamas, and of course in the eyes of many Arab leaders, has placed the blame squarely on Israel, we know that Israel has categorically denied any involvement in this attack, placing the blame on Islamic Jihad in Gaza for a failed rocket launch, according to the IDF. But I think it's important to underscore that over the course of more than a week now, what we have seen is civilian areas inside Gaza repeatedly coming under attack by Israeli airstrikes. So that's not only according to Hamas and Palestinian authorities on the ground in Gaza, but that's according to international rights groups, according to people we've been speaking to, hospitals, medical facilities, schools, even evacuation routes that are said to be safe for people to flee to southern Gaza. So you can imagine across the Middle East the outrage that is felt. And of course, we are expecting more protests across the region. As you mentioned, some are going on as we speak in Tunisia. We will continue to see people taking to the streets, and this will only intensify as Israel's aerial bombardment of Gaza continues.